Now, page 4, the Obama fundamental transformation and internal destruction of the nation. One of the key components of imploding a country is national defense, the armed forces. Obama has been systematically deconstructing the U.S. military, the Army being pared down to pre-World War II levels, the Navy stripped down to pre-World War I levels. Meantime, those who volunteer to serve in the military are subjected to what has been becoming a social petri dish. And now the topper. Speaking of transformation, the Pentagon is lifting its ban on transgendered people from serving in the armed forces. Now, in the big picture, this is a shoulder shrug. How many transgendered people would want to serve anyway? Probably a fraction of a percent, but that's not the point. Regardless of the chaos that a move like this would make among the recruits, regardless of the logistical nightmare, regardless of the morality of it all, regardless of what would happen if the Islamic State were to capture one of them, this is how Obama destroys our country. Obama is making structural changes in so many areas, across so many aspects of everyday life, that it is truly hard to keep track. And while that fire smolders, here's another one: forced neighborhood integration.
Still, the work of the Fair Housing Act remains unfinished.
Stop the tape. Yes, of course, because you're a liberal progressive. Your work is always unfinished. We don't know exactly where Obama wants to go, where any progressive liberal wants to go and take this country. We just know that their work is never finished. Roll tape.
Just a few weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled that policies segregating minorities in poor neighborhoods, even unintentionally, are against the law.
Stop the tape. Yes, this is unconscious discrimination. It's a new legal term. Can anyone explain to me what unconscious discrimination means? Is it like unconscious flying an airplane? I'm unconsciously flying an airplane right now. Unconscious discrimination opens the door wide open for any slip and fall attorney to sue away. Roll tape.
The court recognized what many people know to be true from their own lives, that too often where people live determines what opportunities they have in life.
Stop the tape. You know, that's a great point, Mr. President. I know how you're meaning that statement. That is, if they're in a poor neighborhood, they're always going to be held down, and they're always going to be poor, and the wealthy people are always going to hold them down. But why don't you look at it this way instead? That we as Americans, 310 million strong, are very lucky to have been born in America. We could have been born in Afghanistan. We could have been born in some hellhole in Africa, maybe Kenya. You should be going out and saying how lucky we are to be Americans and to have been born on this soil, instead of tearing us apart. Roll tape.
In some cities, kids living just blocks apart lead incredibly different lives. They go to different schools, play in different parks, shop in different stores.
Stop the tape. You know, when I was a kid growing up, we played in a park that had some grass in it, but it had rocks right in the middle of it. And you know what we did, Mr. Obama? We played tackle football there anyway. And yeah, there were better parks in other neighborhoods, but we survived. And look at me, I'm kind of doing okay by most people's standards. We need to have Obama parks. That's what it is. Come up with Obama parks to go with Obamacare and the Obama phones. Roll tape.
On different streets. And often the quality of those schools and the safety of those parks and streets are far from equal, which means those kids aren't getting an equal shot in life.
Stop the tape. Okay, so where is he going here? What he's doing is he's imposing the federal government on local neighborhoods, local municipalities. And they need to do checks and make sure that there's X amount of minority representation in every neighborhood. And if they don't have minority representation in every neighborhood, then the Obama administration is going to withhold federal funding. Now, that would be federal dollars that started on the local level, moved to the federal government, and now he's refusing to give to these areas because these areas don't fit his ideology. And he's using the Department of Housing and Urban Development, just like he used the IRS, just like he's used the Department of Justice, to extort these local municipalities. Where does it end, Mr. Obama? How about this? How about we move some low-income people on the grounds of the White House, your house, at least temporarily, or better yet, why don't we move your house to, say, downtown Baltimore? See how that would feel. So after throwing hundreds of billions of dollars at poverty over the past 50 years, what exactly do we have to show for it? Right now, there are more than 14 million children in this country who live in poverty. In fact, the poverty rate is higher now under Obama than when the so-called war on poverty began under LBJ. The best antidote to helping poor people is simple. It's the opposite of the Obama fundamental transformation. The answer is what Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s, unleashing the American free market economy so that everyone, including the poor, can succeed on their own.